what do you know of the old Adrian scene?
Of the old Adrian scene? Well, you would think, having grown up here, I really don't know much about it. When I got to the point where I was in high school and I wanted to start a band, at that point, I didn't know of really any other band in Adrian that was doing anything really anywhere. There were a couple. I had some friends through my buddy Keegan Sanders, who I played drums with. He had a band, but they were kind of off and on, and that was really it. There wasn't really anyone else. There's just not really anywhere to play, so.
Let's see it right now!
So the scene, as I remember it, was insane. There were shows typically Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Sunday and Monday.
It was huge. And it wasn't just Lenawee County. If you break it down, we were pulling from Toledo, we were pulling from Detroit, we were pulling from Jackson, we were pulling from Kalamazoo. And all these bands wanted to come here and play because they knew there would be a crowd. And people just showed up.
That's a crazy thought.
There was even
people came to Adrian because they knew there was a crowd. That's a crazy thought.
Yeah.
It was so unreal for the area, especially like, you know, Adrian's relatively small comparatively to other music scenes. So, and I think like right when we were starting, it was starting to pop too, like in Adrian as well. So you had like bands like Pious Plague, and I remember like some other like outliers like Poverty Nook, which were from like Brooklyn, Michigan, and it evolved from there because then you had, you know, Vigil and then eventually As Angels Mourn, and it's like all the dominoes aligned and they fell at the same time because everyone just started up.
It was pretty fragmented in the beginning. Like we were talking about before, there was like all those dad rock bands, and then all of a sudden like people that we went to high school with started bands, and we were like, oh wow, that's like an actual thing.
It was something to see. It was really cool because people actually seemed to enjoy just doing things.
Yeah, we would get out of like classes in high school, and like Friday would be like second rate would play downtown over by like the public library, and then Bone Pool, they would have a little like pavilion set up, and you'd have like That Side of Redemption play there.
And I remember a lot of those 4-H shows were always packed, you know, front to back. There'd be 200-300 people.
It was asses to elbows at a lot of shows. It really was. One of my favorite venues was actually, I don't know what it's called now, but it was called Bethany, because they had a really, the
Bethany
church.
Assembly of God?
Yeah, yeah. That place was decked out like an actual like.
Was that in Adrian?
Yeah.
But it legitimately made us feel like we made it.
Yeah.
But we were playing off of 223 in a church.
Right.
So it was this, and I completely agree with you. That was my favorite one because when we went on that stage, every single person was there for the same reason in the audience, and it was to support us, like as artists. And every single person would come up to the stage, no matter what band it was, what artist, what genre, they would come up to the stage and they just loved it. It felt like a festival, like a Warped Tour or something like that, like because of the odd genres, but like it was so many different genres, but we were all on the same team.
Yeah.
That even though we were like this death metal-y, proggy thing, but the, you know, emo pop punk band that's coming after us is into us and we're into them. It didn't matter that the genre wasn't our cup of tea. We were all in it, and we were all going to support each other.
17 at the
17,
beginning.
yes.
17.
Kenny Sledge,
Hearts Bleed Black.
Hearts Bleed Black.
All
yeah,
that stuff,
all of these artists that just did not think
They
that
would
we would
not
get
be on
along.
a playlist
No.
with each other. Like,
Exactly.
It doesn't,
Right.
It's not going to be on a mixtape.
I think my fondest thing to look back on about it is that it really was a place where people elsewhere in Lenawee County, elsewhere in high school, didn't fit in anywhere, but they found a niche. They found a place where they felt like they belonged in the Lenawee County scene. A lot of the communities in Lenawee County are this is an outsider perspective, as somebody who didn't grow up here, very, very cliquey, very closed off to outsiders in a lot of ways. And I felt that a lot in Onstead. I didn't click with a lot of those people, but I was able to mesh in with Adrian people to the point that there are people to this day that I guarantee you believe I went to Adrian. It was a good hodgepodge mix of a lot of rejects. We were all kind of rejects.
Yeah, I think the cool thing is, thinking about it now as, someone who's a little bit older, is the amount of, I guess, outreach we were doing to kids back then too, giving them a safe place to hang out.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And I think there's definitely a certain amount of influence you have in the community, because it's a small town. It's like you'll probably see those people again. It almost feels more like a friendship, like these are my friends, these are my people. It was a really amazing thing to be a part of, honestly, and it's cool that we did have the opportunity to speak into people's lives, even when it came to just sharing our faith, talking about God.
You went to these shows and you got to talk to these people. You did really generate like a connection with them. And so like the next time you saw them outside of the show, like you had this connection to the community that wasn't there before. And looking back now, it's just like, wow, that was really this was a unique time in this city's and this county's history. I've never seen anything like that again since then.
What I learned, or what the scene basically taught me and Adrian, is that you constantly have to change and evolve. And with a lot of these shows, what kind of happened, which happens in Adrian, is you stay along one path, not a lot of change and whatnot. With my shows, my goal was to bring in all different types of bands. You might have Silhouettes of Something Strange or the Injured List, with Mental Breakdown, like a crazy, screaming metal band. A lot of the bands that were playing, they had something to say, and this is how they were saying it, and they just want you to listen to what they're saying. So they did it, whether it was, we're going to have fun, we're going to talk about Jesus, we're going to talk about Satan, or whatever the hell you wanted to talk about.
It was just basically a group of people that were like 15, 16, 17, and then some early college, like people that went to Adrian and people that went to Siena, that would just stick around. And it was really weird because it was mostly metal bands when I started, but I was in a punk rock band and we sounded like Blink-182, and then it'd be all these dudes just screaming to death.
Okay, this is Vigil. Remember, you can express yourself in your own personal space. As soon as you start running into other people, you're pulled out. Don't do it.
Describing the music between 2005 2010 would be kind of a combination of thrash metal. It's kind of the precursor to a lot of the heavy music that we listen to now. The musicians, I listened to the drums first. The musicians had really fast hands and really fast feet. The guitarists played really, really loud, distorted chords. The vocals were very throaty and very screamy. The first band that I heard doing that was when Addison used to do a Rock at the Rock festival, and my students would recommend bringing certain bands in, and they'd kind of known what was going on. Being from Addison, they always kind of looked at Adrian with envy as far as the music scene. So they would throw out names I'd never heard of, and I'd contact them through MySpace at the time. So one of them was As Angels Mourn, was one of the first ones that I saw. I was really super impressed.
I would say the one band like at the time that was like really kind of pioneering the scene, I would say is As Angels Mourn.
I was gonna say,
sure.
yeah, if I had to pick one singular band, because they defined the true sound of what was going on at that time.
Yeah.
If there was a genre to like sit in that time frame, like 2002 to 2009,
Right.
it was this like hardcore,
dissonant kind of thing.
yeah, and very upset.
Yeah.
I was thinking about like very upset,
but also
but melodies too.
Yeah,
they had
the pop
like
influences.
pop melodies and
the showmanship.
And
Yeah.
the showmanship
Yeah.
was unbelievable,
Yeah.
dude.
It allowed all these different genres to then become forefront popular artists, because a band like As Angels Mourn that was combining all of these different things together, there's an aspect of it, and another band does that fantastic, so now they rise in the ranks. And it was just, oh, this person's screaming voice is fantastic, and now they're super popular, and it's just all those elements.
When I first saw them, their first song they did was "See You Later."
Oh yeah.
And like, yeah, opening up with just a fucking heavy ass breakdown and "I'll break your face with my fist" when you're fucking 16 years old.
You're like, I want to do this.
Hell yeah.
I would love to break somebody's face with my fist. Yeah.
We all want to break faces.
And I think that they really were the driving force locally, for sure.
Within Adrian.
Within Adrian,
Yeah.
and Tecumseh. I mean,
yeah,
they
because
were,
it was like once you knew them, and then you would hear about this band called Vigil that wrote
Out in Onstead, yeah.
wrote music for the musician.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, and then I was like,
oh yeah, once I met
it just
Steven,
gets
I was
better.
like, oh.
Some of my favorites are definitely Vigil. Those guys were, I think, probably the most talented group of guys musically that I've seen, not only locally, but I mean, I would say hands down one of the best I've ever seen. So those guys for sure were a huge influence. The way that Steven could play that damn guitar, I mean, I just love it.
Vigil was a band's band in that they didn't always draw a ton of outside people, but anybody who was in a band was all up in their shit and watching every single thing that they did, because
they were the most talented band in the scene.
They, on an individual basis, each individual member was the most talented musician in their respective place. No disrespect to any other musician in any other category. Dylan was the best drummer in the scene. Dusty was the best bass player in the scene. Steven was the best guitar player in the scene. And anybody who tells you otherwise is full of it.
actually, we'll go back further than As Angels Mourn, because my first exposure to the music scene in Adrian was Maple City Fest when I was probably 13, before I got into high school.
Was it This My Soul, dude?
It was the year that This My Soul played, and that was like, when you see hundreds of people in downtown Adrian stacked up in front of a stage, but awesome. To grow up in a place where like you thought Adrian, I didn't even think that Adrian was a slow, quiet town when I was a kid, because we had events in downtown every single summer. And so I just thought that's the way things were. I thought we had music festivals. I thought this was normal to have like a battle of the bands where there's a punk band and an indie band and a hardcore band. I thought that was normal. And that was my first exposure really to like the music scene here, was a battle of the bands in 2003. And we don't have a music program that lets out all these musicians. It was just a thing that happened in the early 2000s because of things like Maple City Fest. So it wasn't one specific band for me, but just the fact that it existed in the first place, that if the culture exists, people are going to do it.
Can you describe what the scene is like here in Adrian?
Right now?
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's none. As far as I know, there isn't a scene. There's no venues, I think. There's what's that bar?
Yeah,
the
brick wall. Bar shows.
But any bar that you see that does like live shows, it's really just like cover bands. A lot of cover bands. And even at the fair now, they used to have like a lot of like great bands. Like it was only like just like great bands from here that played there. But now it's like out of town cover bands and like folky type stuff.
I've heard of a few groups and bands and artists that are from here, but like never get together or do anything.
The only show we played in Adrian was the New Year's Eve 2019 going into 2020 in my mom's basement. Because there's like no place to play in Adrian like on that specific day, but like in general, like
I looked out to get into like some of the bars and stuff, and they were like, no, you guys aren't a cover band. So literally like they were like, we only want cover bands because like we want people to come in and see. I'm like, all right, well, that's fine, whatever, like, oh well.
Before, it was cool because there actually was like somewhat of a scene of original music. When it comes to like today, what you have to do is fill a lot of time at like bars. It's not like somebody's putting together a group of bands for a show that are all original. It's like usually there's going to be one band and they're going to play mostly covers for like 3 to 4 hours. It's very different from having like a community of kids that was excited to go see their friends like playing on stage, playing original music.
Yeah, the current state of the music scene in Adrian is completely dead. Not just because of COVID. I think COVID has like really just kind of solidified it. But even before then, there was like, in Adrian, I could think of 4 places to play, and 3 of them are restaurants, and also bars. So, and even then, those places only have the same music for the same people who are hobbyists, which is fine, but they play classic rock from the 70s, and the only people that are going to the shows go to get the drinks, but also listen to some music. So it's not really, it doesn't really feel like a concert experience. It's just kind of there. Like half the people in the venue would rather you just turn down the volume. So that's the scene. That's the scene. That's the scene that I came into, actually. And that's still the scene after, I don't know, 6 years. So.
I think the scene really started, I don't want to say falling apart, but really showing the signs that it wasn't going to be around much longer around 2009. And I say that through the lens of we weren't playing in Adrian much anymore.
It just, the age of the scene was there too. That it just kind of essentially ran its course.
Exactly.
That we all were around the same age, and all of us within 2 or 3 years all left doing other things at the same time.
Especially with playing in Adrian, the reason that ended was because it ended for everybody.
Yeah.
Like everyone sort of like was off doing stuff. You know, the guy who would book most of the shows maybe had a kid,
Right.
and now he's like,
Yeah.
you know, kind of coming of age, full adult.
We got old.
Yeah.
We got
It
old.
just happened. So people in our grades, people who graduated in 2006, 2007, 2008, by 2011, 2012, had graduated from college. A lot of us went to college locally, but by 11, 12, they were graduating from college and then getting out of Adrian completely. In that 2-year period, we played only maybe 2 or 3 shows in Adrian. There stopped being show opportunities. There was no more 4-H shows. There were no more point shows. We played at Adrian College once in a while, but really the opportunities dried up when the people who graduated high school in 2006, 2007, once they graduated from college, then it was gone.
Lenawee County right now, both with high school and with college, has kind of a brain drain. And what I mean by that is as soon as somebody gets a degree, they move somewhere where they're going to be able to use their degree. And in Lenawee County, there just isn't that need to have 3 colleges with highly educated populations getting absorbed into the population as soon as they graduate. Like, we don't have that infrastructure.
For the last 30 years, they've been telling young people in Adrian that if you want to do something, you have to get out. You can't do it here. And unfortunately, that's the case. When you look at it, like, we kind of stopped playing music in 2007, 2008. It was like right at the cusp of a big economic downturn for the whole United States. And it just so happens when you are pulling the dwindling manufacturing out of this area, like they've taken, you know, $20, $30 jobs and replaced them with $10, $11 jobs. So, you know, 2008 hits and everybody's worrying about their house, let alone playing music.
And when the recession rose, everyone was fucked. The news stories on the TV, you would see people cutting live power lines to steal the copper. And I'm like, this is getting crazy. So I was fortunate enough to throw those 2 shows at LA Cafe when I did, because, you know, that was the start of the mass migration out of Michigan.
So when the recession hit, a lot of the middle class to upper middle class families who were mobile were able to move out and either follow their jobs that were being transferred or to find new work. And so kind of what happened was the bottom fell out and then the top moved. And for those who could stay here, most of those families were the professionals who were serving the community. So teachers, nurses, some doctors, small business owners, that type of thing. But there's a larger and larger group of people who had a hard time getting through high school and then had a hard time finding jobs. And so as soon as that happened, the class dichotomy switched, and how classes were built, and the percentages of free lunch and reduced lunch really went up. And when that happens, when people are struggling, the last thing they care about is if their son or daughter have a working trumpet.
Now that I think about it, a lot of the bands we played with, there was at least one on a show that would have some connection to the church or whatever that we played at. Once that sort of connection sort of died away, so did the opportunities, because a lot of us didn't want to have to pay to rent a hall or something like that as well.
We never wanted to pay for anything.
True.
We were all so broke.
The Brass Lantern shut down, this place shut down and stopped holding events.
4-H doesn't want to host because someone lit the bathroom on fire. You know?
Yeah.
Something like that, I don't know.
We had seen like the injured list played like Meyer, you know, of all places. Like that was how like we were scraping the bottom of the barrel of having places to play.
But once you stopped having city funding for music and for concerts, there were no venues left to perform in that were accessible with low income, and kids have no income. So I think that there really is like a monetary bar for entry that things like Maple City Fest, because it was paid for by the city, gave people something to strive for and something to look forward to and something to really build music toward. There was a prize for it. Adrian doesn't do Battle of the Bands anymore, as far as I know.
Yeah, see, and that stuff is what, as a broader scheme of music, is what would get 13-year-olds like, oh, there's this music thing, and
Also,
then it'd
high
be in the
school
back of
started
their
cutting music programs and arts programs.
If you don't have that in the back of your mind, and then you're like
Then
a
it's just
sophomore,
not there,
junior
yeah.
in high school, and you're like,
Yeah, why do I care? Why do I care?
There's really no place to go see shows. Where we usually play, we play like in Toledo, in Ann Arbor and stuff like that.
And they have big scenes.
Yeah, and then when you have a bigger scene, you have more people in that scene, and it's just like a whole bunch of friends just going to shows together.
Mhm.
But people around here, like the only shows they go to are like really big band, like $100 a
Like
ticket type
DTV,
shows. Yeah.
yeah.
So they don't really get that like experience.
Yeah, it seems like ice still needs to be broken. Almost like people are afraid to be ridiculed by other people that they know in such a small town.
Yeah. Like we know people who like tried to start bands like that were younger than us, but they just didn't.
Yeah,
Like,
just
yeah.
Yeah.
You know why?
Maybe they weren't doing it.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They gave up too easy. Like, I don't know. I just feel like there's not enough people.
Yeah, not enough people, not enough like, because we don't have any music stores really in Adrian. There was one, but it was in the mall, and the mall's closed. I feel like our economy's just dying.
Yeah, Adrian's just, I don't know about Adrian right now.
So the other thing that I feel impacted is I think there was a shift in the music itself, and that by 2010, 2011, the Christian metalcore stuff was going by the wayside. It wasn't nearly as popular as it was, and I saw a lot more people getting into poppier, indier, like hipstery stuff. And so I saw shows happening, but they started becoming coffee shop shows for one or two people, and there were still shows around, but they were house parties for groups of one or two, and it was a musical shift. So there
It's
were
less
still
about a band
right.
and more about a project.
There were still kids making music, but they weren't making band music, and it stopped being a band thing. And I'm not saying that necessarily dissolved the scene, but I don't think it helped.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, their just tastes changed.
Taste did change
Most
over
of the younger people that I knew that were great musicians, that were in jazz band or anything, a couple years after me, they'd go play in a band and they'd be doing Pink Floyd covers.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where it's like, okay, those guys did that a couple years ago, all the older guys, and they're still like kind of bashing their head in the wall over it, like, let's do something different.
Jordan, do you have insight on why people our age didn't?
I do, because I tried to start so many bands in high school, so many times, but I could really just never get it to work. It was hard to find people with similar interests in music that also wanted to perform. It's kind of like you have to check a lot of boxes to make a band, to have a band that really can like put on a show. You have to have a lot of things in common and trying to accomplish a lot of the same goals. And when it's already that few people that are doing any of those things, trying to find one person who does all of them is very difficult. We, honestly, the people in my kind of generation of a class through Adrian High School, we started to get into jazz a lot through the ingenious of Crosby Sloop. And but even then, it's like we got a group together and they were actually gigging a lot, but nobody in Adrian likes to listen to jazz music. We found out very quickly.
Yep. It's all top 40 here.
Yeah, we never really got calls back. It's kind of like we would book a venue, or we'd be trying to, but then as soon as they would ask, like, what do you play? Because, not every venue accepts all kinds of music. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
We would tell them we do jazz, and they would say, you need to go somewhere else.
You need to go to hell.
Yeah.
You're playing jazz in Adrian? How dare you?
Yeah. So we tried to do that. That didn't really work either. I tried to do like a more pop rock thing through Connor Bennett. And that was cool, but we just could never get the band to form. It was just tough to get people that were interested, motivated, determined, goal-driven. It's just hard to find people.
For sure.
I don't think it's that people don't want to create. I think it's that there's not outlets for them.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because
that's a better way to
because educational systems have continually been cutting the arts and have continually been cutting music programs, And I think that when you start cutting creative outlets,
Mark's saying everything I want to say.
no wonder people aren't creating more. You don't have an
Like-
outlet for them, and you don't have a place where they can learn and they can grow.
If
And like
we
you have to
hadn't-
make bad stuff to make good stuff.
If we didn't have a place to go play our music, then
Brad
it probably
Sharp's jazz
would have
band.
just been me and Chris in the basement playing
Right.
Metallica covers.
I think that this whole thing,
Which was great.
You have to attribute this whole thing really to Brad Sharp's jazz band because like Billy was in it. A lot of people that ended up playing in local hardcore bands were in jazz band or music appreciation in high school. And when they started cutting the extracurricular music programs because Adrian High School became IB and they had to become more college oriented and like test prep oriented, you lost all of the nuance that comes with letting an individual teacher decide how to guide curriculum based on the students in their class.
So arts funding is always an interesting thing to talk about because in a budget crisis, it's the first thing to go. And then when your money comes back, it's the last thing to be put back. So it's kind of like an hourglass almost. So in 2008, when I had moved to Adrian Public Schools, that was kind of like the top of its golden era as far as like student population and the students it served and musical students all over the place. That was when the budget cuts from Michigan started happening. So Adrian was put on a failing schools list. And as soon as somebody's put on a list and their name is listed as failing, everybody pulls all the stops and puts on the brakes as far as what they're going to do. And they start focusing on test-taking courses and kind of like rudimentary type engagement for students so that they can pass tests. And I remember sitting in a professional development where there was a company that was hired from outside, like a third party came in, and they presented us with a plan to basically educate the students who would barely pass and then not focus on the students who had no chance to pass. And I always remember being a music teacher thinking that anybody who wants to be in my class should be able to be in my class. And hearing a third-party company say that the only way that our school was going to get out of the failing list was basically cut out the kids who couldn't pass the test, I thought was inherently wrong.
But no, yeah,
I think that's the gist of it. Really,
the scene kind of left with all of us.
Yeah.
We just it didn't really come back. As far as I know, it's
sleeping in the minds of the young right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So do you think the scene might be able to come back?
So I think there's gonna be a genre that comes around that like really speaks to them, and as long as it speaks to like that audience, that will give them the drive and the fire to wanna start a project or whatever. You know, whether it's just one guy doing everything, which is very popular now too,
right? Yeah.
Or it's a band, or who knows? You know, I think it's like a genre will come along and it'll inspire kids on a kind of a common ground level, and then it could happen. You know, but I think it's always the right time and right place type of thing.
All it's really going to take is one band, maybe two bands for something to really start happening again. This being the college town that it is, I think there's potential for people to come in and form something. The scene we were involved in was more high school, which would, I think, be a little different starting back up again.
Yeah, it's just like, it just takes the right, those right people coming together and just being like, let's just get together, like, even just house shows, getting 20 people in a basement or a garage, see how people like it and run with it. It's all it takes is just the willingness to just kind of put yourself out there.
The first step is making sure that your kids are in all the public music programs that they can be in. When I was teaching at Adrian, and we were going through like kind of a downturn of the economy, and years and years and years of habits are hard to break. So as soon as people had money, getting them to want to rejoin these programs that they'd stopped going to, like band and orchestra, because it costs money to be in it, was much more difficult. Constantly having your child between the ages of 5 and 15 involved in, not just exposed to, but involved in making music and making art, then at some point they're going to go, I have stuff that I want to say that's not written on a script and it's not on my band music and I need to get it out. And then as a parent, you go, yes. And then you help them do that. It takes a lot of effort. But I think that like all of those kids that I saw in the scene between 2005 and 2010 had that experience. They were all band kids, like either in Mr. Sharp's band or Mr. Stukey's band, or they took drum lessons, or they were around some of the music stores in Tecumseh, whatever. Like there was a reason they had that bug. And a lot of those places aren't doing the same thing anymore.
We all came from, we loved jazz, but we also loved black metal and death metal.
Yeah.
But all these different artists made us the band we were.
Right.
And that was true of every single other person in the scene. Every single band was just like, oh yeah, I played, I did jazz camp for 6 years and now I'm in this, deathcore band.
Right.
And it's just like, how? But then you listen and you see it
and you're like,
hear it.
oh,
You're like, I get it.
shit.
Oh, because
Okay.
you're using that triad. I get it. That's
Right.
straight from jazz camp.
Right, yeah.
I would imagine it would require some sort of a push, some sort of an influence for one or two kids at a show to see one of the older bands playing and go, God, that's cool. I gotta get a drum kit, or I know somebody who plays a guitar. Let's start collaborating and stuff, and then getting their friends to come in. It would have to build. As it is now, I don't see it happening without some sort of a push.
I'm going to go against the grain, and I'm going to say no. I think what the Lenawee County scene experienced was a fluke. I think the fact that there were so many musically gifted and individuals who had that proclivity for music that all happened to be in a small rural county like Lenawee County, I don't think that's something that happens very often, and I'm not convinced that that's something that could be recreated. I think it was a once in a generation fluke that could exist, because there were bands before the Lenawee County scene, before our time.
Well,
there were
before our
bands
time, yeah.
before our time, and there will be bands later. But will there ever be
So
a solid
many bands?
15 to 25 bands playing shows every weekend with that sense of community and that camaraderie ever again? In Lenawee County, I don't think so. Will that pop up again in other communities, in other places? Yes. Will it happen here again? Smart money says no. I don't think it will happen again. I think what we experienced was something unique and unusual to the extent that I don't think it could be properly recreated. I can't foresee a future where there are shows every weekend and 15 to 25 active bands. I don't think that will happen again.
There are badass musicians in this town that nobody knows about, right? Nobody knows about them, and they're phenomenal, like so good. Yeah, and a lot of them, they move all the way through college. They kick ass the whole time. They can't get any gigs here, so they have to drive an hour or 2 hours, and they'll go play shows that have tons of people, and they're received well, and they're putting records out, and they're getting deals, and they're doing shit. They're doing stuff, but they can't do anything here because there's no opportunity for them to do anything here. Yeah. We have the talent. We have the people who want to witness and go to the shows and be a part of it, but we don't have anyone who's established in Adrian that's willing to commit to it. Nobody. That's the barrier. That is the barrier. You can have a musician or a bunch of musicians across all genres and people ready to go to shows through all these genres. But if there's nowhere to have, there's no location, having a space is so key and essential and necessary for growth, for anything, just anything you do. So when there isn't that, it can't foster itself, it can't grow, it can't snowball into something bigger. It's just stuck at nothing, really.
I think one thing right off the bat is just the fact that this is a college town. It's kind of like an undercover college town. Like, you don't think that, but there's really Adrian College, Siena Heights, and even Jackson College. There's a lot of young people. And I think just having young people brings more business to everyone, but it also could bring a lot more interest into having shows.
It takes the interest of the young generation, but it also takes the support of the adults in the community to really make it happen. Right. It can't be looked at as like a way to make money. I think the priority needs to really be on the community and the people, the kids. And honestly, it could even be one place, whether it be a church or a school or, some teachers or something like that who want to see kind of like the younger generation be connected and engage with each other in a pretty cool way, and just see that community and see the benefit that it has.
Actually, it would be a hell of an opportunity after the pandemic, if things were to get to normal.
Right. First step, vaccine. Second step.
Well, what I'm saying is for people to, maybe people who took live performances for granted, would go to them once in a while kind of thing, will be much more energized and excited to put on these events and attend them and be a part of the community, because it is something that it's extremely important. And when you don't have it, you finally realize just how important it was. So
that's why we started playing again.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that we looked at everything and went, oh, I really loved that.
Yeah.
We should do that again.
Right.
Dude.
Right. So, yeah.
People just want a space, really, where they can gather together and have something in common, not be judged, not be criticized, not have to worry about whatever politics is going on. People just want to go somewhere and get away from all that and just be together, have some music. If someone just starts something, it will kind of ignite a flame. It'll start a fire that people will start to like kind of gravitate toward. I feel like that's like what can start the scene back up. That's all it takes, just a semblance of something.
I think having a venue is the biggest factor, though, because if you don't have a place to aspire to play at,
if you don't have anywhere to play
just in your
music,
basement.
Like I said, then you're just me and Chris in the basement playing Metallica.
Right.
And if you don't have a place to show people
what you've made,
then
it's the same as having an outlet for any other art form.
Probably not going to make anything.
Are you going to make short films if there's not a short film festival? Are you going to play music if there's not a place to perform? Are you necessarily going to... I mean, you might paint, but if there's nowhere to show those paintings, you're just painting in a bubble. And I mean, artwork was meant to be consumed.
There's some sort of like research or study that says something to the point of all it takes is 100 true fans. That's all you need. Just find 100 people. They can be your family. It can be your friends. It can be whatever you want. Just go out, find these people, show them what it is that you do, make them care about it. If they care about it, they will support you. And then that gives you more of an opportunity to go do the internship.
Yeah.
Go write some songs. You want to play drums? You go play drums. Just find those 100 people that really care about what you do. That's really all I can say.
You got to catch lightning in a bottle, kind of, but there's no reason that it can't happen again.
Let's go to the point tonight. Let's go see all our friends and all our favorite local bands, just like we did in '07. And I'm sorry.